I found myself gripping my brother's arm so tight I thought I might bruise him. My heart wasn't just pounding. It felt like it was trying to climb out of my chest. I was standing at the back of the church, staring down an aisle that suddenly felt longer than any distance I'd ever walked, and I was thinking, Dad should be here. Dad should be the one doing this. But he wasn't. He never would be again. My name's Daniel. Friends call me Dan. And 6 weeks before my life turned upside down, I walked down that aisle, not with my father, but with my brother, Adam, my best man, my only living immediate family, my steady hand when I thought I might collapse. It was a beautiful day. Too beautiful, honestly. The kind that makes you wonder if the world is mocking you a little. Sunlight pouring through the stained glass windows. Fresh flowers lining every pew. My fiancée, Claire, waiting at the other end of the aisle, her smile trembling just enough to look real, not posed. Adam squeezed my arm before we stepped forward. Said he was proud of me. Said Dad would be too. And for a second, just 1 second, I believed it. I let myself feel that kind of blinding hope again. That kind of home. I didn't know then that the man walking me down that aisle, holding me up when my heart was breaking, was the same man who would quietly, brutally, betray me before the ink was even dry on my marriage license. I didn't know that 6 weeks later, I'd be standing in an empty house with a note in my hand and no husband beside me, because Adam had made sure he wouldn't be there. But let me back up. Let me tell you how the ground cracked under my feet, slow at first, then all at once. When Dad died, it hollowed something out of me I didn't know could be touched. He wasn't perfect, no one is, but he was the kind of man whose absence roared louder than his presence ever did. He believed in hard work, slow forgiveness, and showing up even when it was inconvenient. And after the funeral, when it was just me and Adam sorting through Dad's things, drinking beer on the back porch like the kids we used to be, he made me promise something. He said, "When you get married, Dan, don't walk alone. Take family with you. That's how you show the world you're not starting from scratch. You're building on something." At the time, it sounded almost poetic, like something Dad might have said if he'd still been around. So when the wedding came, and the idea of walking down the aisle alone made my throat close up, Adam was the obvious choice. No hesitation. No second guessing. My brother, my blood. It's funny how betrayal isn't loud. It's not fireworks and slammed doors. Sometimes it's a quiet thing. A slight shift in a voice. A glance that lingers a second too long. A gap you don't notice until you're already falling through it. In those first few weeks of marriage, Claire and I were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. There was the usual adjustment. Sharing a bathroom. Figuring out whose turn it was to cook. Late-night arguments over nothing important. But underneath it, there was love. Solid, grounded love. Claire was vibrant in a way that made everyone orbit around her without realizing they were doing it. She could walk into a room and change the temperature. I was more reserved, a planner, a worrier. She used to tease me about it, called me her steadfast man. And God, I was steadfast. I would have walked through fire for her. But sometimes, when love burns too brightly, you don't see the shadows it casts. 6 weeks after the wedding, I came home from work to find our front door ajar. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe Claire had her hands full and forgot to pull it shut. Maybe the wind had caught it. But then I stepped inside. The house was empty. Claire's shoes were gone from the rack. Her favorite throw blanket, the one she dragged everywhere, missing from the couch. The photo of us on our wedding day that used to sit on the entryway table gone. On the kitchen counter was a single envelope. My name on the front, in her handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a note, short and gutting. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. I need to find myself before I lose everything. Please don't look for me. Please don't hate me. I'll always love you, but I can't stay." No explanation. No warning. No goodbye. I stood there for a long time, the walls of our little house closing in. I must have read that note 100 times, looking for some clue I missed. Some crack in her words where the truth might leak out. But there was nothing. Only silence. And the echo of the promises we'd made, still hanging in the air like ghosts. For days, I blamed myself. I must have missed the signs. Must have been too caught up in my own routines to see her drifting. I told myself love wasn't enough. That maybe I wasn't enough. I didn't even think to blame anyone else. Not at first. Not until I found the texts. Texts that weren't meant for my eyes. Texts that weren't mine. Texts between Claire and Adam. Hidden in the cloud backup that synced automatically, the one she must have forgotten about. I opened them with trembling hands, and that's when the real story began to unravel. And brother, let me tell you, once you start pulling a thread like that, it never stops at just one. I found the messages by accident. It was a Sunday night. The kind of night that's supposed to feel slow and safe, laundry tumbling in the dryer, the smell of leftover takeout hanging in the air. I was sitting on the couch with my laptop open, trying to pull together some photos for a little memory book I thought might help me process everything. Claire had always been the one who handled our tech stuff, the calendars, the backups, the cloud storage. I hadn't even thought twice about logging into the shared drive we used for our wedding planning. I figured it might hurt, sure, but sometimes the only way through the pain is straight through it. I clicked a folder marked travel. I thought it would be honeymoon ideas, bucket list spots we never got around to. Instead, it was full of screenshots. And tucked in between screenshots of flight info and hotel options, there it was. A folder labeled private. I almost didn't open it. God, I wish I could say I closed the laptop and walked away, but I didn't. Inside were a handful of files. Most were just benign, old text backups, calendar notes. But one file stood out. A text thread, auto-archived from her old phone. I opened it. At first, it looked like nothing. Casual messages. Jokes. Updates. But when I scrolled further, my heart started hammering against my ribs. Because the person on the other end wasn't a girlfriend. Wasn't a cousin. Wasn't anyone she should have been leaning on like that. It was Adam. My brother. My best man. The man who walked me down the aisle when I thought I'd collapse from missing Dad. And the messages weren't just about sports scores or family plans. They were about me. About us. And not kindly. At first, it was subtle. Little complaints. He's too rigid. He doesn't understand you like I do. You deserve more, Claire. Someone who lets you breathe. And then, darker. You ever think you're marrying him out of guilt, not love? You don't have to settle just because he's safe. You and me, we understand each other better than anyone else ever could. Reading those words was like being punched over and over in a place no one could see. And Claire. Claire wasn't arguing. She wasn't pushing him away. She was agreeing, flirting back, feeding the fire. There were hints. Things I hadn't noticed before. Inside jokes they had when we were all together. Little looks exchanged that I chalked up to them just getting along. God help me, I wanted them to get along. I thought that's what family was supposed to do, welcome your person into the fold. I didn't realize they were building their own world, one brick at a time, behind my back. I sat there until my legs went numb, until the screen blurred from the tears I didn't even realize were falling. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining the distance. The late nights she said she was running errands. The weird tension between Adam and me whenever I mentioned moving out of state for Claire's new job opportunity, one she'd supposedly turned down because she couldn't bear to leave. It wasn't logistics or life plans or cold feet that drove Claire away. It was Adam. It was my own brother. And now, staring at the wreckage, I wasn't sure which betrayal cut deeper, losing the woman I loved, or losing the only family I had left. I spent the next 2 days in a fog. Didn't eat. Didn't sleep. Just existed. People kept calling, mutual friends, old college buddies, even Claire's sister, who had no idea what had happened. I ignored them all. What could I even say? Hey, remember that beautiful wedding where my brother stood next to me like my biggest supporter? Turns out he was working on stealing my wife the whole time. There's no Hallmark card for that. No roadmap for rebuilding your life when the two people who should have had your back drove the knife in instead. By the third day, the anger started to set in. Not the hot, shouting kind. No, this was something colder, sharper. A kind of grief so deep it burned itself into steel. I decided I needed answers. Not closure. Not an apology. Just truth. I texted Adam. Just 3 words. We need to talk. It took him almost an hour to respond. All he wrote back was, come by the shop after close. 7 p.m. Adam ran a little auto body shop in town, the kind of place Dad used to take me when I was a kid, back when Adam was still the golden boy, and I thought loyalty was something you could take for granted. I showed up just before sunset. The shop was closed, the open sign dark. His truck was parked out back. For a second, standing there in the gravel lot, I wondered if I should even go inside. If maybe it was better to leave it all unsaid. To just disappear, start over somewhere no one knew me, no one knew them. But then I thought about Dad, about that promise I made him. Family is supposed to mean something, even if it hurts. Maybe especially then. So I pushed the door open. The bell over the frame jangled weakly. And there he was, Adam, sitting on a beat-up stool by the front counter, looking like he hadn't slept in weeks. When he saw me, he didn't smile, didn't crack a joke, didn't pretend. He just nodded once, like he knew, like he'd been waiting for this. And what he told me next shattered whatever pieces of my heart were still holding together. Adam didn't get up when I walked in. He just sat there on that splintered stool, elbows on his knees, rubbing the same spot on his jaw like he could erase the guilt if he worked hard enough at it. I stood there for a while, arms crossed, waiting for him to say something. Anything. He finally broke the silence with a voice that sounded 1,000 years older than it should have. You found the messages, didn't you? Not a question. A statement. I nodded once. Short. Sharp. If I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure if a scream or a sob would come out. Adam sighed, the kind of sound you make when you realize there's no version of the story where you come out clean. I never meant for it to go that far, he said, staring at the oil-stained floor. At first, it was just talking. She was lonely. You were busy with work. I thought. Hell, I don't even know what I thought. I flinched like he'd struck me. You thought what? I said, my voice low. That you could comfort her? He didn't answer right away. Just kept rubbing his jaw, like that hand motion was the only thing keeping him tethered to this earth. She wasn't happy, he said finally. She told me she felt like she was suffocating. Like marrying you was the right thing on paper, but her heart wasn't in it. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. And instead of telling me, I said, shaking with the effort to stay calm, she told you. He nodded. And you just stepped in, I said. Slid into that crack. Like a damn snake. Adam flinched that time. Good. He deserved it. I wanted to hit him. God, I wanted to. But there was something worse than violence sitting in my chest. It was disappointment. Bone deep. Unshakable. You were supposed to protect me, I said, voice breaking against my will. You're my brother. You walked me down the aisle, Adam. He finally looked up at me then, and there was something broken in his eyes. Something almost worse than defiance. Regret. I know, he whispered. And I hate myself for it. I stared at him. Really stared. And for the first time, I realized Adam wasn't the golden boy I had spent my life believing he was. He was a scared, selfish man who'd made the worst mistake of his life and took me down with him. But it wasn't just about the texts. Not anymore. Something had been gnawing at me, quieter, deeper, since the moment Claire disappeared. I remembered how weird Adam had been those last few weeks before she left. How he kept suggesting maybe you two should slow down. How he warned me, in those little offhand comments, that marriage changes people. At the time, I thought he was just being overprotective. Now I knew better. Did you talk her into leaving me? I asked, each word like pulling glass from my throat. Adam didn't answer right away, which was answer enough. I didn't tell her to leave you, he said eventually. But I didn't tell her to stay, either. There it was. The quiet betrayal. The slow, invisible hand nudging her toward the door while he kept pretending to be my anchor. You let me stand there, I said, my voice hoarse, making plans. Building a life. You let me believe I was safe. Adam swallowed hard. I thought, maybe if she left before it got worse, it would hurt less, he said. I laughed then. A hollow, ragged sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Less. I said, you think this is less? He dropped his head into his hands. And for a minute, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the broken soda machine in the corner, buzzing like it was struggling to stay alive. Just like we were. I could have walked out then. Could have left him there with his guilt, his justifications, his sad, sorry explanations. But I needed the full truth. I needed it like a man dying of thirst needs poison, even knowing it'll kill him. Was it just emotional? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. Or did you? He looked up at me, and in his eyes, I saw it. The truth. Before he even said a word. No, he said. We didn't sleep together. He said it like it mattered. Like it changed anything. Like betrayal has a hierarchy. But betrayal is betrayal, whether it's whispered in a dark room or shouted from a rooftop. The silence after that confession was thick enough to drown in. Finally, Adam stood up. Slowly. Like every muscle ached. I know you probably hate me, he said. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He nodded like he understood anyway. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled something out. A folded piece of paper. I didn't want to take it. Didn't want to hold anything else he had touched. But I did. Because that's who I was. Still the good son. Still the loyal brother. Still the idiot who needed to believe in something, even if it broke me. The paper was thin, crinkled from being handled too many times. It was a printed email. From Claire. Sent 3 weeks before she left. Addressed to Adam. I can't keep lying to him. I'm going to tell him the truth. I have to. I can't marry him when my heart is somewhere else. At the bottom, in handwriting I recognized immediately, Adam's handwriting was a note scrawled in ink. Please. Don't. You'll ruin him. Let me handle it. I stared at that note for a long time. Long enough that the words stopped making sense. Let me handle it. Let me destroy my brother's life quietly, gently, like snuffing out a candle instead of burning the whole house down. I folded the paper and tucked it into my jacket. Not because I forgave him, but because I needed to remember. Needed something to hold on to when the doubt started whispering that maybe it wasn't as bad as it felt. It was. It was. I left the shop without saying another word. Without looking back. Because sometimes the door you close behind you isn't just a door. It's a casket. And some relationships aren't meant to be resuscitated. I drove around for hours that night. No destination. No plan. Just the need to be anywhere but inside the skin I was wearing, the skin that still smelled like the life I thought I was living. I ended up in front of the house Claire and I used to call ours. The porch light was off. The windows were dark. Empty. Like it had never been ours at all. I sat there in my truck, headlights off, just staring. Wondering how the hell you could build a home with someone, lay bricks of memories one by one, and still miss the cracks forming right under your feet. I pulled out the folded email again. Smoothed it over my knee. Please. Don't. You'll ruin him. Let me handle it. Adam's words. Not Claire's. Not mine. His. The more I thought about it, the less it made sense. If Claire had cold feet, if she really didn't love me, why the secrecy? Why the need for Adam to handle anything? Why not just tell me? Claire wasn't cruel by nature. She wasn't the type to relish hurting someone. She would have ripped off the Band-Aid clean, even if it meant bleeding afterward. Unless she thought the truth would cause even more damage. Unless the truth wasn't just about feelings. It was about something worse. The next morning, I went back to the house. This time, I didn't just sit outside like a ghost. I let myself in with the spare key I still had under the fake rock by the porch. The place was stripped bare. Furniture gone. Photos missing from the walls. Even the mugs we bought at our first Christmas market together, gone. But the thing about leaving in a hurry is, you always forget something. I found it in the hall closet, tucked into a box marked, winter clothes. A phone. Claire's old one. The one she swore had stopped working 6 months before the wedding. She'd laughed it off, said she needed an upgrade. I hadn't thought twice about it. But here it was. Still charged. Still active. Still full of secrets. At first, it was just the usual stuff. Photos. Apps. Grocery lists. But buried deep in the Notes app, hidden under a fake shopping list labeled bananas, milk, toothpaste, was something else. A note. Dated 6 weeks before the wedding. Written like a confession. If anyone ever finds this, I'm sorry. I should have been braver. I should have told him the truth. But I didn't know how to choose between the two halves of my heart. Adam said he'd protect him from the fallout. And I didn't have to carry the guilt alone. But what if the real reason I can't stay isn't about love at all? What if it's because I know what Adam did? I dropped the phone. It hit the hardwood with a sickening clatter. My breath felt like it had been sucked out of the room. What Adam did, it wasn't about an affair. It wasn't about stolen glances or secret texts. It was bigger. And Claire, she hadn't left because she didn't love me. She left because she was afraid of what staying would cost me. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. There had to be more. Something. Anything. I tore through the apps, the saved files, the voice memos. And finally, buried under archived voicemails, I found it. A recording. Just labeled, listen. I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then Claire's voice, low and trembling. If you're hearing this, it means I couldn't go through with telling you face to face. It's not just me, Dan. It's Adam. He didn't just talk me into doubting us. He did something else. Something that started months before the wedding. He's the reason you lost the promotion at work. He's the reason your loan application for the house got flagged. He made sure you felt trapped, stuck, like you needed the wedding to work because everything else was crumbling. He sabotaged you. A pause. A shaky breath. He said it was for my sake. Said if you didn't have a way out, you'd cling harder, and then you'd never let me go. I didn't know about it at first. I swear. But when I found out, I didn't know how to fix it without breaking you. I'm so sorry, Dan. Please no. I loved you. I still love you. but I can't be the reason you stayed chained to someone who never deserved your loyalty." The recording clicked off. Silence flooded the room. But the damage was already done. I sat on the floor of that empty house, staring at the dead phone in my hand, feeling my world tilt sideways again. Adam hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. He'd systematically undermined me, made sure the ground crumbled beneath my feet, made sure the only thing left standing was him, my brother, my best man, the same man who promised Dad he'd look after me when he was gone, the same man who wore a boutonniere on my wedding day while hiding a dagger behind his back. It was never about Claire. Not really. It was about control, about power, about Adam needing to be the son everyone else revolved around, even if it meant eclipsing me completely. And Claire, she wasn't the villain. She was collateral damage, just like me. The funny thing about betrayal is, it's not just the moment you get stabbed that hurts. It's all the moments afterward, when you realize how carefully someone placed themselves at your back, how much trust you handed over, never once thinking you'd need armor. How many times you made excuses for little things that didn't sit right, a weird comment, a too long silence, because you couldn't fathom that he would ever hurt you. But he did. He hurt me in ways no enemy ever could, because he knew exactly where to aim. And now? Now I had a choice. Stay broken, or get up. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something stir inside me. Not rage. Not grief. Resolve. Adam thought he could bury the truth under good intentions and guilty apologies. He thought I'd be too hurt to fight. He was wrong. Dead wrong. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. Not because I was planning some dramatic lawsuit or fiery revenge. No, because Adam had crossed a line that wasn't just emotional. He tampered with my life, my career, my finances, my future. And there's a difference between betrayal of the heart and outright sabotage. Claire's voicemail mentioned my promotion falling through, the flagged loan application. Little things that seemed unrelated at the time, bad luck, timing, just how the world works. But it wasn't luck. It was him, working quietly behind the scenes, unraveling my life thread by thread until I had nowhere left to turn except toward the one person who pretended to be my safety net. My own brother. The lawyer's name was Frank, an old friend of Dad's. The kind of guy who wore tweed jackets even in the summer and spoke in sentences so sharp you could bleed from them. I handed him everything, the texts, the email Claire left behind, the recording. I laid it all out like a body on a table. He didn't flinch, didn't pity me, didn't coddle me, just sat there, flipping through the evidence with eyes like a hawk. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "You've got him dead to rights, Dan. If you want to pursue this legally, interference, fraud, emotional damages, you could. He won't walk away clean." I nodded, heart pounding. But Frank added, steepling his fingers, "You need to ask yourself, what do you really want?" That question echoed in my head long after I left his office. What did I want? Justice? Revenge? Or just peace? That night, I sat in the skeleton of my old living room. The house felt less like a home now and more like a museum of a life that never really existed. I thought about Adam, about the nights we spent building tree forts as kids, playing video games until sunrise, sneaking beers from Dad's fridge when we were too young to know better. I thought about how betrayal doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the ones who know exactly where to stick the knife. I thought about Claire, about the bravery it must have taken to leave, even if she did it badly. And I thought about Dad, about that promise I made him, to build on what we had, not destroy it. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to press charges. I wasn't going to drag our family name through the mud in court. I was going to confront Adam, one final time, face to face. And then I was going to leave him exactly where he belonged. Behind me. I found him at the shop again. It was closed this time permanently. A for sale sign stuck crookedly in the window, like it had been hammered in by someone who didn't care if it stayed straight. I parked out front and waited. An hour later, Adam's truck rumbled into the lot. He climbed out, stiff, wary. He saw me, paused, didn't look surprised, just tired, like he knew this was the end of the road. We stood there in the morning light, two men who used to share a childhood, now sharing nothing but ashes. I pulled the folded email from my jacket and tossed it at his feet. "You build a whole life out of lying to me," I said. My voice didn't shake. "Not anymore. You sabotaged my job, my future. You made sure I felt trapped so you could swoop in and play the hero." Adam didn't deny it, didn't excuse it. He just stared at the paper like it might crawl away if he looked long enough. "I thought I was protecting you," he said eventually, voice hoarse. I laughed, low, humorless. You weren't protecting me, I said. You were protecting your own damn ego. You couldn't stand the idea that I might build something better than you ever did. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Good. He needed to feel it. Every ounce of it. I'm not pressing charges, I said. Not because you deserve mercy. You don't. But because dragging this into a courtroom would only prove one thing, that you still have power over me. Adam swallowed hard. I'm done letting you write my story. His eyes filled, but I didn't care. I turned and started walking back to my truck. He called after me. Dan. I stopped, 1 foot already off the gravel lot. Don't, I said, without turning around. Don't say you're sorry. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. Silence. Heavy. Final. I got in the truck. Started the engine. Pulled away without looking back. Because some bridges don't burn because you hate what's on the other side. They burn because the only way forward is to light the match yourself. Back home, I packed up what was left of that house. Claire's memory still clung to the corners like dust, but it didn't hurt the way it used to. It wasn't fresh anymore. It was just a fact. A scar that proved I survived. I put the key under the fake rock one last time and drove away. Not broken. Not angry. Not bitter. Just free. Sometimes, closure isn't a door swinging shut. Sometimes, it's you walking through it and never looking back. And as I drove into the wide, open road ahead, I realized something simple and powerful. I didn't lose everything. I lost what wasn't meant for me. And in doing so, I found myself. The weeks after I left felt strange. Not painful. Not heavy. Just quiet. Like the storm had passed, and all that was left was a stillness I didn't know what to do with. I rented a small apartment downtown. 1 bedroom. Bare walls. A view of the coffee shop where the barista learned my name by day 2. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Some nights, I caught myself reaching for my phone, half expecting a call from Adam or a text from Claire. They never came, and eventually that hurt faded into something softer. Not forgiveness, exactly, but peace. I started running again. A few slow miles each morning, just to remember what it felt like to move forward under my own power. One morning, just before sunrise, I crested a hill overlooking the sleeping city. The sky was breaking open with gold. And standing there, lungs burning, sweat cooling on my back, I realized. I wasn't broken. I wasn't lost. I was free. The thing about loss is it clears the ground. It burns away everything that never truly belonged. Leaves only what's real. For the first time in a long time, standing in that morning light, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was proud. Months later, a letter arrived. No return address. But the handwriting was hers. Claire. Inside were just a few simple lines. I hope you're happy, Dan. Truly. You deserve a life that doesn't require forgiveness to survive. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to love myself back. No plea. No signature. Just closure. I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer. Not out of sadness. Out of respect. Some stories don't need to be revisited. They just need to be finished. I heard Adam left town. Started over somewhere no one knew him. Good. I wasn't angry anymore. Not because he deserved peace. Because I did. Life moved on. New habits. New friends. New dreams built not on someone else's promises, but on my own. Sometimes I think about Dad. About that promise I made him on the porch. Build something real, son. Build it strong enough to last. And now, I finally understand. It was never about houses or marriages. It was about me. If you ever find yourself staring at the ashes of the life you thought you wanted, remember, ashes aren't the end. They're the soil for something better, stronger. Yours.